Houston, we have a problem.
We got a year in review, Mr. Jack John.
Yeah, we do.
We started a thing last year.
Yeah, we did.
We did.
Yeah.
This is right in front of my face. So yeah, we just kind of want to sit down and talk about kind of what this is, what the podcast is, and talk about some of our highs, lows, and neutrals along the way. Kind of what it is that we want to do with this thing, future goals, and so I think what you're saying, a good place to start would be to kind of just take it all back to the beginning. What prompted us to start this? Where shut the fuck up.
I'm just reflecting on this is less weird than it was 6 months ago, but it's
still a little weird.
It's still like, hey, dude.
We usually have somebody like a third person here to interview, so it's a little more serious. But really, this is essentially what got our wheels turning and starting, is just like us sitting down and having long conversations and talking about random shit. But now we've actually started something to kind of funnel some of those ideas, and that I love it. But I want to ask you kind of what was your mindset going into this, and where the ideas come from.
I wanted an outlet. It's funny because it's literally just me and you in your room right now. But I wanted an outlet for my, any sort of creative project that I wanted to have. I wanted something to test my skills with video editing, video content creation. We always had these really deep, conversations about philosophy and music, or just reflecting on life. I always thought that it'd be cool if we could do something like that with more people, or just kind of throw it out in the community. Yeah. Maybe it was a little bit of ego, because it was like, oh, cool, we talk about these things, but we sound awesome when we talk about these things. The world obviously wants to hear what we're talking about, which I think, at least on my end, I learned that's not always the case. I mean, we're here to interview other people and hear what they have to say, but I think the nugget of gold in that was we wanted to talk about these types of topics. We wanted to... Did your phone just die?
I hit press record.
You're fine. We'll just cut you in. We'll do a little edit. Okay. A community to talk about these types of ideas with, and to have these long form conversations where we were talking about philosophy and stuff like that, and just reflecting on all those cool, artistic, abstract ideas that don't always come up when you're just hanging around in the community doing stuff, because it really, depends on who you're talking to, but it's not always necessary, I guess, because you got other shit going on.
Right. Yeah, it's not something that usually comes up in small talk, the type of conversations that you really need to try to get to know somebody, to pick their brain a little bit deeper than just like, hey, how are you doing?
It does come up in coffee shops.
It does.
Stereotypically, which is why I guess we made our brand kind of like a coffee shop, like DJ coffee shop, and then we tied it in with DJs initially because it was our initials, and then we were like, that would be cool because we love EDM music. It'd be cool if we could tie that in with actual DJs and make that a thing, and that's a potential market. We kind of sidestepped into that out of where we were.
Which I think is kind of cool to look back and see how things have fallen into place. Like, we still have a lot of defining to do and growth to be had, but it was cool how, like, that initial idea is just to share ideas, and then it turned into, like, expressing abstract ideas, and that's, through talking, we're like, oh, well, that's really the most pertinent place we see that being done is, like, in music or through art, so trying to
explain the unexplainable.
That. Yeah.
Or just reflect on the unexplainable is usually through music, because people, I don't know if you can really explain a festival experience, but when you go through one, and if you really engage with that experience, it's fucking amazing. And then you just have this catharsis, and you release all this energy, and you feel good, and sometimes people feel very at one with other people, or they feel very locked into the earth, and all these like really intense subjective experiences. But then that's such a fundamental part of being human, but you try to put that into a paragraph, and sometimes it doesn't do it justice. Sometimes it does if you're a great poet, but it doesn't necessarily
always.
All the time. But what's an awesome, like you were saying, a gateway for people to connect with that feeling is music. It's like, I just have to feel this, I don't have to articulate it.
It
just feels right.
It's a feeling. And then I think it's been cool seeing artists try and work through and explain their art. Not that they don't understand what it means to them, but I think it's a different mode or modality for artists to articulate where they're at, what they're trying to do with their art, because not that they don't get the chance to do that normally, but this is kind of like we're trying to offer like a long form way of artists to alternatively express their art or kind of talk about it
or who they are too, which is a huge part of it. Just like who are you as Siege, or who are you as other guests? I know all of you, but I just
shout out Spook,
shout out Spook. Just because I'm spacey, I love all of you. I just sometimes forget, but like who are oops, still goofy. I'm working on it, but it's like, who are you as a person, and how does that feed your artwork? Because you aren't just the artistic production comes out of you, and you're kind of the vessel for it. And then who are you as a human? So it's like, what are you into? What are your opinions on things? What's your presence like? What do you want to express? How do you want to express this new project you did? What did it mean to you? Do you want it to mean anything to you? Everybody's a little bit different. Some artists will just say, you decide what it means to you. Other artists seem like they have a specific message they're trying to give out, and they're using art as a channel for that. While as others are just like, I made this, and the world will decide what it is. It just kind of depends. There's so many different shades, which is cool. You know?
I think it might be cool to take a pause. I don't think on any of our episodes we have the chance to or have done it yet, but kind of express who we are and where we came from, like what we're about, because besides being the people that are on each episode and asking questions, like I don't think
the intros.
I don't think our audience, well, the people that know us and listen to us because they know us, thank you, we love you. But besides that, people that may be tuning in that don't know us as well, like kind of who the hell are we? Like what's our background? Like what connects us to EDM culture or to artistry or to philosophical thinking? So you want to start by kind of giving?
I can start if you want. It's up to you. So I'm a bit of a festival poser at this point in my life. I've only been to like 2 festivals. Quarantine hit right when I was getting into it.
Right.
And then I wasn't able to go to a lot, but I love a lot of the culture of festivals, of the experience of connecting with people through festivals. I think it's extremely profound. My background's actually in philosophy. I studied philosophy in undergrad. I've always loved art. I've always loved poetry. I've always loved different mediums of artistic expression, that kind of like deeper wavelength, just connecting with the world, viewing it in a bunch of different ways. Love anthropology, love like studying cultures. I'm just a really open person to a lot of different types of things. And then one of the biggest, most welcoming communities for just being open and trying the different flavors of life and looking at things differently is live music and festival culture. Depending on what type of music you're going to, everybody's different, but EDM culture is a really interesting spot for that type of self-expression and communion at this time in history, which is just why I've grown to like it a lot. And then I have just now started getting into more creative production type of stuff, video editing, business, like trying to start this type of business with Devin and stuff like that. And I wanted a creative outlet, but then also something for my business ventures. And that kind of fell into this podcast. And then I've just kind of been, working and grinding into this and looking for different communities and, being out of college and just trying to, wouldn't necessarily say make a name for myself, but just explore the world a bit and see what's going on, see what my skill sets are, what I can bring to teams.
See what's out there.
And then do it with one of my best friends and try to make this into something if we can. And that'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
That was a lot. It was kind of a little bit of a disassociated paragraph. It wasn't super organized, but I think I kind of expressed
got
where I was
the point.
Yeah, that's all we need, right? I think I got the point across. How about you? What's your background, Mr. Devin?
Mr. Devin. I think in some ways we're very similar, and obviously that's why we're really good friends and able to work together very well. Also, so for those who really don't know us, we met in college as undergrads and quickly became goofy friends that had long drawn out talks about random subjects. But I can honestly say, and we've directly talked about this, but I think it's understood that you've been a really big support for me coming out to Tucson and throughout really, really fundamental years of my life. Been there as a person to bounce ideas off and talk through things, and I think that's in a way one reason that I looking back think that one of the more underlying reasons of why I wanted to start the podcast is just how important that dialogue and that discussion with somebody is, for getting through difficult times. And we always talk about how difficult this age group is. I think life in general is fucking hard, but we've had long talks about how difficult this age range of learning who you are as a person and
Yeah.
growing and exploring how difficult that can be without, someone to talk to about those type of things. And looking back, I think that's one of the more important like pillar things that we're trying to offer is like just a medium to talk about the insanity, absurdity, and beauty in life, because it comes in waves, and it comes at difficult times, it comes at great times, and I think that's one of my favorite parts of like why we're doing this, and what keeps me going. If doing the more monotonous parts of this thing start wearing me down, it's like this is feeding me. I know that much. Talking to new people and sharing ideas, and then hope eventually we can get to a point where some of these discussions also somebody can listen to and be like, I identify with that, or I think that's cool. I've never really thought about something that way, or even if it's as subliminal as I haven't been put onto this artist yet, and they have really great art, and it makes me feel a certain way. So I'm going to start listening to them and start following their journey, and maybe through that inspire, something in that person to pick something up artistically and express. I think I know we've focused, because of the name, we've kind of focused on EDM and our love for EDM. We've focused on EDM and electronic music, and I love that. But I really hope that this brand continues just to expression in itself. Yeah. In any way, shape, or form that comes across.
Mm-hmm. Just giving that space for you to be you, whatever that is, and understanding that there's a lot of people like you and you are uniquely you. However, there's a community you can always connect to kind of accentuate certain qualities of your personality, or just discover yourself more. And as you said, 20s is a very weird time. Teens to 20s is sometimes a weird time. Figuring out who exactly are you, if you ever really figure that out, or what are you about, what do you like, what do you dislike. And just maybe making it a little bit lighter for people, if we can provide that at maybe like a macro level. And the other side of it is, our interest in EDM, and just kind of putting out this content like this and running it like to a T, kind of like a business where we're just trying to produce stuff and give a good service. And, see whatever comes out of that too. Down the road.
And I like that you bring that up, and I think, from my standpoint, one of the most interesting hurdles we've come up against, in my opinion, through starting this, is finding that balance between business and art. Business is not technically a business, but like the structured setting of a business of running a podcast versus artistic expression, which not usually don't mix, but can oftentimes be separate. And I think we've been trying to ride the line of artistic expression and getting things done. So what's been your viewpoint experience on that?
I think you got to scheduling and prioritizing time, and the understanding that it's hard, because I think when you get caught up into creative venture, you want to pump 24 hours into it all the time and see where it goes. At least that's how I feel about it. But maybe just identifying what your goal is, what you're trying to create, and then scheduling little things that ensure that you have time to create that macro thing, and making sure it actually happens, because it's kind of rare that you get 6 hours in your day just to grind into a project. You can get it sometimes on the weekend, but then you run into the issue of maybe my life's not balanced now because I'm only doing this, and then it kind of dysregulates everything. And at least for me, it's been helpful to say, well, I'm going to mark out an hour to work on this creative venture, and I'm going to hold on to it. Or if I'm really feeling inspired by a certain project, it's like, okay, I'm going to put 4 hours into this, and I'm going to turn it into something somewhat solid, and I'm going to make sure I create it within the next week or two until it feels, so it doesn't feel stale later down the road, But I think that's helped. And then understanding that, well, like I said, one, in order to make sure things happen, I think scheduling is a really big part of it. But then also understanding that the micro goals kind of make the bigger product at the end of the day. So you got to just make, you can have a lot of ideas, but you got to make sure you actually set time to hit little tasks every day, and just hit those little markers. And then not get discouraged as well if you're trying to make a big creative piece and it's kind of out of your skill range, and then having to be real with yourself and say, hey, I can't make this yet, but I can make these things, and I want to regiment some time so I can work on being better, so I can make that in the future. but I want to have these goals met this week, and how do I make sure that happens?
Yeah.
Whatever that is for you, whether it be you run a podcast or you know have work and then you have this creative thing you do on the side, or you have work and this creative thing and you want to take this person out on a date and then you're interested in them, but you don't want to get too sucked into something else. You're trying to find a balance in your life. If that made sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is more of a generalized question now, but what would you say for you personally has been the biggest challenge or obstacle in getting this off the ground?
Probably juggling numerous balls at once. And for me, it's been getting caught into, my ego will get caught into a certain project, and that's all that matters to me, and it's the most important thing to me. And then I just don't care about anything else, and I would plug out and for 6-7 hours, and then just focus on doing one project. And then maybe that doesn't work, which was a great experience making it, but then I didn't support you to help try to get an episode out for one of the weeks, which is like why I probably brought up scheduling, because that's something I struggle with. I'm doing it more now, but that's what's helping me. And one of the problems I've struggled with is getting too sucked into creative projects and then not being tactical enough about it, so I can actually, medium to long term, help us create what we're trying to create here. And putting the ego at the door and saying, well, it's not all about, creating this really cool thing I want to create. It's about us turning this into what the brand is,
right?
Which is both of us kind of putting our own flavors into it and into something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And allowing things to look differently and embracing that difference if it kind of fits the team goal.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
At least that's what it seems like to me. It seems like a healthier way to go about it.
Yeah. It's something that you kind of brought up early on in this venture that's kind of helped me see through things. Just something along the lines of like the dust and clouds or something like that. Yeah. Can you explain that? Because I know the concept, but I don't know.
It's Gary Vaynerchuk. It's not me, but I'll bring it up.
Sorry, Gary V.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I think he'd be down if people talk about it anyway. That's like his whole thing is give it to the community and let them make something of it.
Yeah.
Dust and Clouds is his idea for entrepreneurship, but you're either, riding high sometimes and you're almost like in this like euphoric state. You're like, man, look at how great we did. This is fantastic. We made this thing.
Yeah.
Or you're just in the shit and you're just working step by step, crawling just to try to make something work.
Yeah.
Which isn't inherently shitty, but your mindset determines whether or not that sucks or not. But you're going to have to go down in the dirt and make shit regardless. And then you can kind of clump enough stuff together and make something really cool emerge out of that grind. And then you get the clouds, which is, maybe for us, like we had a live set with somebody, or one of the most up and down moments we had Seth on, DJ Spat, but he had like the coolest set ever, and we still have it. It was like the coolest like visual video set. He was in the woods in Flagstaff. Amazing set, mostly house, a little bit of, maybe it was mostly house and a little bit of something else, but it was like a summer mix. Beautiful. We edited it, did a whole intro sequence with a quote from him, and then it got blocked by YouTube.
Like,
and I damn near like punched my computer screen. Yeah, but we spent probably like 2 weeks on it.
Yeah.
And then it just didn't happen, and that was one of the clouds to dirts moments.
Yeah.
And it was just, we were grinding through that. Had this awesome moment where we were like, look at this thing we made. We could play it on the TV, and then we just couldn't release it to our audience. Yeah. The audio version, however, is on our Spotify. If you want to listen to it,
go check it out.
DJ Coffee Talk. You can follow us at any moment. It's a really good set. We'll work to get the video out in the future at some point. But that was an example of a cloud stir moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It was almost instantaneous. We just saw the notification from YouTube, like, "Oh, you can't post this. There's surprise, copyright." Fucker. Okay. Well, what would you say has been your most favorable moment from the past 8 months? So let's also kind of clarify. We started this on 4/20 of 2020.
Yep. Really, that has been 8 months, huh?
Yeah. It's been about 8 months.
Fuck yeah, dude.
I know, right?
It went by quick.
Yeah. And, for anybody who is like contemplating starting a podcast, or anybody who's actually into podcasting, we did, the bare minimum. We sat down with our friends, pulled out a laptop, and just pressed play and recorded nonsensical conversation we had, and
Yep.
I love it to death. But
Decent amount of views. Yeah.
Decent amount of views, and it was a good time. But that, like, just that forward motion of press and play, doing something has been like monumental. Like, this wouldn't have started, I don't think, if we did that, because previous to that we had been talking about doing podcasts for probably a good year and a half, and kind of just tiptoeing around it and being like, oh well, that'd be cool, maybe we could do this. But I think it was 4/19 of last year that we actually sat down and we're like, okay, themes, what are we gonna do? Just come up with something. We did that, and the very next day sat down, press record. And I think it's been cool to see, like, even just in the 8 months, like, just the growth of both of us and how the brand has grown with us in a way. And we've added some ideas, some things we realized weren't the best of ideas, and we're like, okay, well, that's not effective, or that's stupid, so let's not do that. And then just kind of just the refining of our idea of our brand has been really cool to watch.
Yep. I agree. And I guess seeing how we've progressed, where are we trying to go in the next 6 months to a year? I mean, we have these ideas of where we want to go. So where are we trying to go in the next 6 months to a year with this? And I mean, do you want to talk a little bit on that? What we're aiming at, what we want this to look at, like, what we've settled into a little bit as our brand.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important, like we've talked about, to set high goals, but set realistic goals. Like, anything's realistic in a certain amount of time. So, like, okay, that's cool. We have our long-term goals. Now let's break that down to what do we want to do this next year, and kind of focus on that. And like you're saying, just break it down into more micro goals, and then just start moving forward. Over the next year, I want to, bare minimum, get a consistent schedule and release an episode at least once every 2 weeks. So at the very least 26 episodes. And then if we have other episodes we can put out that just come up, I mean, hell yeah, let's do it. And so just making the podcast the core of what we're doing, because that's what we started with, and that's what we've been building our skills to do. But I think we've been talking about, like, building like a community around the podcast too, of things, of people, of ideas. And I think that's really what's going to be the driving force for us, or what I would like to be the driving force for us. Is it's not just a podcast. Podcast is great. That's our passion. We like talking to people, but also turn it into something else. You know? And make it something that, because it's been really cool to see grow with us, something that we can potentially continue to grow, even if you and I have life things and we split ways, and at some point in time we can do this remotely while we're continuing to grow and find ourselves throughout this weird age group, and and maybe even into adulthood, and to see where it goes. So really focusing on making it sustainable, making it something that we're still continuing to, like, enjoy doing. Every day is a little unrealistic, but most days enjoy doing and gets us excited about things. And just growing our base of people that participate and listen to the podcast. Because I think we have a good platform, and I think we're learning skills to make us better interviewers, make people feel more comfortable. So really, it's just growing the amount of people that we talk to and the ideas that we present through this medium.
Yep. And it's kind of, I think we have that idea of, we wanted to make this like a record store, except virtually. It's like the record store of this generation, but it's virtual, and you can come and stop and hang out, have a cup of coffee, talk to people, meet with people. And kind of the base of that is us generating that culture. So we talk to artists, we talk to people that are, philosophers, or interested in ideas, different types of ideas, specialists in different areas. For instance, we had, like, Cole Mercer on, and he runs that like human optimization type of thing, like fitness and health and all that type of stuff. But just seeing what different types of people think, create that community. And then, right now it's like more of how to virtually we create that space so we can have a community, which that's going to be on media, having our brand out there, and then maybe having a home base through a website, and being on different social media platforms, and just, expressing who we are and inviting people in and saying, hey, you want to come and check out a couple of these episodes, talk to other people that also follow us, and just create different avenues for people to connect with other like-minded people, and for people to create creative products if they want to. So, for instance, I know Spooks was thinking about collaborating with somebody. He's on one of our recent episodes,
Mm-hmm.
right? ABKW. Yeah, he's not released yet when we're recording
should be
this.
By the time that we put this out. Yeah.
But wow, as we're recording this, it's not out yet. But that's another thing we're trying to do is help people, individual creators, connect with other creators. Yep. And really, we're not asking for money from you guys either. Yeah. We just like seeing dope shit be created, and we want other people to meet other people and have this community, and then we'll worry about how we're going to monetize this later. It's just more we want to make this community and interview people, and then we scratch our own itch by having cool, deep conversations with people around the world, and then we're like, okay, cool, we can do this with people. We just have to make a space for it.
Yeah, I geek out. I know we both geek out just thinking about the people that we can interview and the people that we have so far, and I think that's the reward for us at this stage in the process, is being able to talk to really cool people and, you know, like you say, scratch that itch and kind of see where they're coming from, see what their growth and process is looking like. Because I know for me, I've correlated a lot of people's journeys that we talked to so far, like how they've struggled and what they've tried to do. And I can very much, you know, kind of correlate where we're at and be like, oh, that's how they did that. Even if it's not the same exact venture, like somebody making music isn't exactly how you put together a podcast, but in a lot of ways you're putting together an electronic version of a product and you're trying to make it appealing to other people while also staying authentic to yourself. And, you know, it's very inspiring talking to people that have made a name for themselves and made any sort of art, you know, because essentially, you know, I think that's what we're creating. Podcasting can be an art. Interviewing can be an art. You know. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but that's my idea.
I think it was just like, you know, it's create like, yes, like I get what you mean. It might not make articulate sense, but I get what you're saying. Like we're just podcasting kind of is too. It's just any production of something that's not streamlined. I feel like if you're just trying to innovate or do something a little bit differently, that probably falls under the umbrella of creative production.
Right.
There's just different types of creative production, and then there's more, you know, there's music, there's, you know, fine art, there's saying something most people don't say, but it kind of works. I mean, there's creating content, podcasts, lots of different avenues. So it's cool it's a little bit more light, I think, if you view it through all those things. That's something I used to criticize myself a lot about, is that, you know, you couldn't be creative unless you were doing like a specific, unless you were like a fine arts guitarist or something like that, or, you know, these specific labels, which kind of just runs contrary to the whole creative mindset and flow, though. You know, it's kind of loosening up the boundaries a bit and just kind of flowing with things and see where they go. Then you find a medium to express that process of interpreting the world more fluidly, if that made sense. What else do we want to cover on? I guess, do you want to quickly talk about, let's see here, the art of interviewing, and then I probably got to cut out here in a bit.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, so the art of interviewing, and then, you know, that's such a subtle art, but I feel like that's not something a lot of people understand when they get into podcasting. We are by no means masters of it, or even, you know, we're probably mediocre proficient at this point, but we're, I think, nice people, so it works out half the time. But, you know, how to follow someone's train of thought and then kind of try to set them up for certain questions that encourage them to talk in certain directions, and there's like this subtle art to it to get people to talk about interesting things that are actually very interesting to them, or something they know a lot about. And what has that been? I mean, what are your thoughts on that whole process, the interviewing process?
It's really it's a trip, because I mean, it is having, and that's, I think, my idea, and I'm pretty sure is your idea going into it too, is just like, oh, let's sit down and have conversations with people and press record. And in fundamental sense, I think that's true. But I think when you get into more the skill of interviewing and the art of interviewing, there's a lot more that goes into it. Like you're saying, it's essentially in real time, trying to track down somebody's train of thought, look ahead of where they're trying to go, and try and prompt them in a way that allows them to express maybe what they wouldn't have normally. Because I mean, I think that's what I think of what I try to do when I'm preparing questions or thinking about something I want to ask somebody, is like, is this something that is important to them? Is this something that they normally wouldn't necessarily talk about unless prompted? Because I think that's what like interviewing is. It's like, what is something that we should know about you that you normally wouldn't express to other people, and why is that interesting?
And how can we make you feel like this is a safe spot for you to express that, or encourage you and make you feel like you should be confident in expressing what you're thinking.
Yep. And especially if it's something that maybe they haven't completely thought out, or they have, but they've never really articulated it to somebody else, and just mulling through those kind of muddy waters and like, oh, that's cool you say that, like, why do you say that, or what made you think that? I think those finding powerful questions to support but also challenge the person to think through their ideas more.
You're kind of dancing in their headspace. You're just like, where do you want to go now? And it's like, okay, you want to go over here? It's like, oh, that's interesting. And it's like you put like those light little boundaries to be like, okay, we should probably not color too much out of the lines right there, but we'll see where this goes. And you can kind of play around with them as they explore their own ideas. And you're just asking, it's almost like the question is just to illuminate certain parts of the conversation, or it's like a magnetic pull to a certain topic. And it's like, and then if they're really interested and they have an affinity for it, they'll look over and then get attracted to it, and they'll be like, oh, let's talk about that. And if you don't do it well, then it can kind of just like, you just throw questions out there and it doesn't really do a whole lot, which I did a lot of in the beginning, but
I have as well.
It's just like, let's talk about aliens right now, bro, or like, let's talk about what I want to talk about. And that's not what it's about. It's about how do we talk about something that's interesting, our audience probably likes, we're both interested in, a lot about, you're the star of the show. Unless you wanted to ask us questions, then we can, vibe too. It just depends. But it's being willing to kind of see where it's going to go when you get in there, and with openness and, willingness just to accept that person for what they're going to say and just kind of see where it goes and be curious.
I think it's kind of like a kind of complicated, what do you call those, Venn diagrams. It's like, we want to connect it enough to the topic of conversation and all those things that you mentioned, like our interests and the viewers' interests, like connected enough to where it makes sense that we're talking about it, but also like leading enough to be a good question. I think, I started probably more on this bubble, and you maybe started a little bit more in this bubble.
We're kind of meet in the middle now.
Feed it into the middle. And, if whoever has been on the podcast before and is tuning in now, thank you for letting us experiment and try and refine our art with you. We really appreciate you letting us do that, because it has been, and that's something we talk about almost every time, is like every interview, regardless of what happens, like we just want to get better at interviewing and letting people kind of express themselves. And I hope and I think that we've done that so far.
Or just and also talk about cool things and kind of come out of it knowing that we did a service. Like that person who came on feels like they were heard, which at least we've had 2 or 3 people at the very end go, oh, I think I said everything I wanted to say in the podcast, which is cool. It's good to hear that when you interview someone, so it's like, we got everything out of you that you wanted to talk about, and you don't feel shorted after you got out and be like, I just don't feel comfortable with how they asked me questions or where we went, or I don't feel like they actually listened to me and where I was coming from. So we want people to feel like we're actually like meeting you where you are, and we're allowing for this to happen. And we can go create something in the middle,
And given the current, it's a bit of a jump, sorry, but given the current climate of how a lot of news mediums tend to be trending right now, I think another goal for us for this year would be to not get to the point where we're trying for clickbait or trying to get them to say something that'll draw attention from the audience, because I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's welcoming. I don't think that's something anybody wants to be necessarily a part of.
And I think it's how you do it too, because I mean that's kind of, it's a smart strategy for a lot of reasons. I think it can make a very good podcast because you're just hitting hot topics. I've seen a couple podcasts where people do it. There's this hip hop dude who got like tattoos on his neck. He does really cool podcast, but that's essentially his model, is he does research and then he'll like press certain buttons, or Vlad TV, he'll do research and he'll press certain buttons, and that's a good way to get the conversation going. And then you have like the Joe Rogans that are kind of just like, let's just talk. He reads and like understands where you're coming from, but he's like, let's just figure out where this goes and have a conversation. You're a person first, let's talk about the ideas after, and I'll see where it goes. I think it's just what's right for the podcast or what's right for the interviewer. Maybe if we get good enough, we can change that depending on the guest too, and just be like, they would like this type of vibe, they probably wouldn't, and then we kind of, or just how we're feeling, how we want this brand to go, and then see what happens. Alrighty, well, I got to clock out here in a second. But before we go, just want to thank all of you for listening to us.
Absolutely.
Big thank you to all of you. This community is not possible without you. If you like our content, please rate us on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. Pretty much just look up DJ Coffee Talk Podcast and you will find us on Google. And engage with us on social media. We don't like talking and then just talking to ourselves.
Yeah.
We like getting some feedback, some back and forth.
Yeah.
This year, we're going to pump out some opportunities to create a community with you guys. And we want to continue to foster that community and create something out of this. It's not the Devin and Jack show. It's the Devin and Jack show for you guys, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's like, it's not just us just talking to each other. We love talking with each other, but we want to create this so it's something that's for the community. It's a service. It's for other people.
Yeah.
And it's us and meeting other people halfway, not just us, on an ego trip talking about what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
We're here for the community.
Yep.
And other than that, I got nothing to say. Check us out.
Yeah.
Love all of you.
Love all you guys. Look forward to big things this year and talking with a lot of people and just connecting. Like Jack was saying, this is for a community and not just for us. Yep.
Right on.
All right.
All right, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye. That's good.
That's good.